Okay, so for today, we're going to do two things. We're going to continue with narratives, and I wanted to, of course, show you an example of a really good one. It's called a mentor text, and this is an excellent example of what a personal narrative should look like. So it's called The Bike by Gary Soto. I'm going to go through the entire thing and read it to you, and then we're going to talk about slide number 3 and the things that I would like for you to write down in those slides that you got from this example text. So here we go. The Bike by Gary Soto. My first bike got me nowhere. Through the shadow I cast as I pedaled, raced along my side. The leaves of bird-filled trees stirred a warm breeze, and the litter scuttled out of my way. Our orange cats looked on from the fence, their tails up like antennas. I opened my mouth, and the wind tickled the back of my throat. As I squinted, I could see past the end of the block. My hair flicked like black fire, and I thought I was pretty cool riding up and down the block at age 5 in my brother's hand-me-down shirt. Okay, do you hear all of the description in there? Oh my goodness, so much. I love how he says, I opened my mouth and the wind tickled the back of my throat. You can almost visualize it. Anyway, I'm going to keep going. Going up and down the block was one thing, but taking the first curve out of the sight of Mom and the house was another. I was scared of riding on Sarah Street. Mom said hungry dogs lived on that street, and red anger lived in their eyes. Their throats were hard with extra bones from biting kids on bikes, she said. Ooh. Uh, she said red anger lived in their eyes. Ooh, personification. Lots of figurative language in here, I'm noticing. But I took the corner anyway. I didn't believe Mom. Once she had said that pointing at rainbows caused freckles, and after a rain had moved in and drenched the streets, after the sparrows fitted onto the lawn, a rainbow washed over the junkyard and reached the dark barrels of Coleman pickle. I stood in the window, looking out, amazed and devious, with the devilish horns of my butch haircut standing up. From beyond the window, I let my fingers slowly uncurl like a bean plant rising from the earth. I uncurled it, then curled it back and made a fist. I should remember this day, I told myself. I pedaled my squeaky bike around the curve to Sarah Street, but I returned immediately. I braked and looked back at where I had gone. My face was hot, my hair sweaty, but nothing scary seemed to happen. The street had looked like our street. Parked cars, tall trees, a sprinkler hissing on the lawn, and an old woman bending over her garden. I started again, and again I rode the curve, my eyes open wide as they could go. After a few circle eights, I returned to our street. There ain't no dogs, I told myself. I began to think that maybe this was like one of those false rainbow warnings. I turned my bike around and rode a few times in front of our house, just in case Mom was looking for me. I called out, "Hi, Mom." See the dialogue? I haven't gone anywhere. I saw her face in the window, curlers piled high, and she waved a dish towel at me. I waved back. And when she disappeared, I again tore my bike around the curve onto Sarah Street. I was free. The wind flicked my hair and cooled my ears. I did figure eights, rode up the curb and onto the lawns, bumped into trees, and rode over a garden hose 100 times because I liked the way the water sprang up from the sprinkler. After the pressure of my tires, sprang up from the sprinkler after this pressure from my tires. I stopped when I saw a kid my age come down a porch. His machinery for getting around was a tricycle. Oh, so they use the word machinery instead of bike. Big baby, I thought. And I said, You can run over my leg with your trike if you want. I lay down on the sidewalk, and the kid, with fingers in his mouth, said, Okay. He backed up and slowly, like a tank, advanced. I folded my arms behind my head and watched a jay swoop by with what looked like a cracker in its beak. When the tire climbed over my ankle and sparks of pain cut through my skin, I sat up quickly, my eyes flinging tears like a sprinkler. Simile. The boy asked, Did it hurt? No, I said, almost crying. The kid could see that it did. He could see my face strain to hold back a sob, 2 tears dropping like dimes into the dust. He pedaled away on his bucket of bolts and tossed it in his front lawn. He looked back before climbing the stairs and disappeared into the house. I pulled up my pants leg. My ankle was purple, large, and hot. The skin was flaked like wood shavings. Descriptive. I patted spit onto it and laid back down. I cried because no one was around, the tears stirring up a lather on my dirty face. I rose to my feet and walked around, trying to make the ankle feel better. I got on my bicycle and pedaled mostly with the good leg. The few tears still on my eyelashes evaporated as I rode. I realized I would live. I did nothing fancy on the way home. No figure eights, no wiggling of the handlebars, no hands in my pockets, no closed eye movements. Then the sudden bark of a dog scared me, and my pant leg fed onto the chain, the bike coming into immediate stop. I tugged at the cuff, gnashed and oil black until ripping sounds made me quit trying. It's a typo. Oh, I didn't realize that. I fell to the ground, bike and all, and let the tears lather my face again. I then dragged the bike home with the pants leg in the chain. There was nothing to do except lie in the dirt because Mom saw me around the corner from Sarah Street. I lay down when she came out with the belt, and I didn't blame the dog or that stupid rainbow. Okay. So, obviously the story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It also is in one moment in time. So that means it's not talking about what happened last week, the week before that. It does have a small flashback but that's exactly what it is. It's a flashback where he's explaining something that his mom said so that he can then relate it to what's happening on that day. So everything is about him leaving where his mom wants him to go so that he is exploring out. And when he does on his bike, he feels all the freedom. And then something bad happens. I love the way it begins where it says, here's the grabber. My first bike got me nowhere. Through the shadow I cast as I pedaled, raced. Though the shadow I cast as I pedaled, raced along my side. So it's saying that the shadow is following him, which is pretty cool. All right, so what is your job for today? Your job for today is to use that story, which I will post separate so that you can see just the story if you want to read it yourself. And we are just going to reflect from the mentor text that we just read, The Bike by Gary Soto. So here's what you're going to do. It says, look back at the mentor text, then fill in the boxes with the examples from the text showing how the author fulfilled each personal narrative criteria, which they did. So it says, does it focus on one event, experience, or event? So you're just going to write in what is the one experience or event that the story we just read is focusing on. Are there examples of dialogue? There are between characters, but notice it's not what I call diarrhea of the dialogue. It's not the entire story is not dialogue. There's only a couple of examples of it in there, but it's in there. You can go ahead and write in this box an example of dialogue that you found in the story. Makes readers want to know what happened. So where in the story does it make the reader want to know what happens? And down here, describe the author's hook. So that's what I just went over. The hook, it's kind of describing how he sees his shadow. It makes you want to read more. And then find the example of engaging voice in the narrative. So anywhere where it's kind of funny, or they add, you kind of get a little bit of the character's personality. I'll go back and show an example of that. And how do you think the author, or why do you think the author wrote this personal narrative? So what was the purpose? Obviously, the purpose was to tell the experience that they had when this author had when they were younger, which was his first taste of freedom on his bicycle. And that didn't go as he planned. So I want to go back and talk about voice really quick. So right here, let's see. When he talks about his mom and the rainbow, you kind of get an idea of his personality, how he's kind of a little ornery a little bit. So he says, I stood at the window looking out, amazed and devious with the devilish horns of my butch haircut standing up. So he's kind of adding a little bit of his own personality in there, saying that making you laugh. You can kind of picture that, and it kind of makes you laugh a little bit. And then he says, I should remember this day, I told myself. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of their personality. So that's what voice is. That's not the only spot. There's a couple other places where you kind of get his personality. He says, I started again. I rode the curve. I opened my eyes as wide as I could. After a few circle eights, I returned to our street. There ain't no dogs, I told myself. So he's kind of telling you, he's figuring out that his mom has obviously lied to him. She said these things because she doesn't want him to leave her sight. So that's just another example of him kind of being something like, there's no dogs. And you kind of get his personality from that. So that's an example of voice where you could add it in that slide. So I'm going to go back to the slide. So the only thing that you are doing today is filling out slide number 3. Slide number 3. Yesterday, a couple people were confused. Slide number 2 over here on the side is where it says the numbers of the slides. So slide number 1 is just the cover where it says narrative writing. Slide number 2 is what you were supposed to fill out yesterday, which is the narrative writing notes. And then slide number 3 is Wednesdays. That's for today. So you are going to fill in, I'm going to make this smaller so you can see it. You're going to fill in this entire slide. All it says type in the shaded text boxes, and wherever it states add text here. So that's where you're going to put the information from the story that we just read by Gary Soto. Okay, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.